Hi, it's Snorgle. Welcome back to Exploring Minecraft, where I just check out Minecraft. This is peaceful Minecraft. Check out some biomes, experience this, and just kind of talk about stuff. I head in this direction, not exclusively, like only in a straight line. Come on now. Boat, let's go. Okay. So, I kind of touched on this last time, and I thought we'd talk about this again. So, one of the things I'm exceptionally good at, professionally, at my job, is I'm really good at at understanding really complicated and complex things in my particular expertise. And I have a little bit of a wild background because I have a background. I used to design and develop video games, so I'm a creative person. I'm a formally trained musician. I used to be a professional. But I also, for a while, used to professionally make and like just like a one-person studio, I used to design, make, and develop games. And so, I don't think you see a lot of people have a lot of design skills and development skills. I don't think that's very common. I don't think that's very common. And so I want to talk about this because it's important. There's something happened at work I think it's interesting is so that the reason why I'm good at understanding really complicated things is directly because of my training in music, and I'll tell you what it is. I think it's not all of it, but for when you get a formal degree in music, you have to. It's always so funny. Like you take piano lessons. You take piano lessons since I begged my parents for piano lessons since I was like. I was 5 years old, and I finally started taking them. I think third grade, maybe second grade. And when you take piano lessons, you take a piano lessons, and you also have theory assignments you have to do, like theory homework. Hey, there's not a lesson. And the theory homework is harder as you go through. And, I took piano lessons all up until I was a senior in high school. And the theory gets harder and harder, progressively harder as you go through. And I was pretty good at theory. I always understood it fairly well. But here's the funny thing. Like when you go to get a degree in music, that entire theory that you took up to that point, that's the first semester of theory one. And there's typically two really basic lower level theories, theory 1 and theory 2, and then you get more specialized things like counterpoint and analyzing. I took an entire year-long class on analyzing Beethoven symphonies and piano sonatas, and you just get all this kind of stuff. So you learn how to look at a musical score, an orchestral score, and you learn how to understand it, and you learn how to understand it in a multiple different ways. And I touched on this last time, but I want to talk about this and pivot to real life circumstances here because I think it's kind of interesting. So one of the things you learn to do is you look at the entire score, more nautilus, and you think, okay, I need to see this. And this is especially true if, for example, if you write an orchestral piece, for example. I've written many, and you write an orchestral piece and you want to listen to how it's being played and you want to be able to give direction to the orchestra, And so you need to be able to understand in its complete entirety, 360 degrees, what the orchestra is doing as a whole, as a single unit. You also need to understand what the different individual things are. Like I said, I talked about this before, but I'm going somewhere with this. This is a huge ocean. So cool. So you also understand that, like, you have to understand what each individual section is. You have to understand what the violins are doing as a whole. And even higher than that, like what the strings are doing as a whole, what the brass is doing as a whole, what the woodwinds are doing as a whole, right? You have to understand that because that's really helpful. Because as a whole section, they might not be, there might be something you can help them with. You can say, oh, that's not quite the intention I had for in this particular piece for what the strings are doing. But then in there, you need to get into first violin, second violin, and first viola, and second viola, and within those different like subsections, there's a number of individual players, right? And so I think this is really, really interesting. So you have to tell the different players, right? You have to be able to tell what the different players are doing, because you might say to the third violin, oh, you're a little bit sharp, or a little bit something like that, right? Or it's a little bit strong. Can you bring it? Just You might have to say something like that. And orchestras will test you. You know, they will. Somebody say the third violin will play a note that's not what they're supposed to play, but it's not wrong. It's wrong in that they're supposed to be playing it, but it's not out of tune. It's just a wrong note that works with the harmony. And you need to have good enough ears. You need to have good understanding. You need to be able to get that respect, that form of hazing, right? And so you develop ear and you learn to do that. But so you have to be able to understand from the entire orchestra down to each individual musician. You have to listen and understand how all that works together. And one of the things that the reason I was able to transition from being a professional musician to making games, to creating, concepting, designing, and developing games, is because a lot of that training. I don't know why this keeps coming up, and I don't like it. I think it's weird. Okay. So most musicians I know haven't sort of had this epiphany that I have, but I remember one very specific point when one of my passions is cooking. I love to cook. I cook a lot of different styles of food. And when I was in college, it was very important to me that I felt like I need to learn. My mom was a horrible cook. She was a terrible cook, just awful. And I remember it was such I'm getting a little off track, but I'll come back. It was such a surprise to me when I discovered that broccoli isn't like gray and mushy. If you could have broccoli properly, it's green and vibrant and delicious. It's my favorite vegetable. My favorite vegetable is cooked right. And it was just shocking to me. And when I realized that food can be good, then I wanted to learn how to cook. And when I looked at that, I thought, if I'm going to learn how to cook, I need to learn the basics. I need to learn the technique. That's how it works with music. Like if you want to be a good musician, you have to learn the technique. You have to practice. Is that a ship? Huh. Is that a village too, or I can't tell. Look at that crazy mountain. Anyway, so getting back to understanding complexity. So when I had this epiphany, it's like something switched on in my brain. And I was easily able to, just almost immediately. It was very strange. It's like suddenly my brain understood something that had been marinating on for years. Behind my back. Didn't know what was happening. Behind my back. That's so cool. Look, that's an entirely intact ship. That's so cool. Do I have any sand? I don't. Let's just get some sand, because I don't want to screw up. We'll get enough so we can, come up here. Get on the ship. I don't want to ruin it either, because it looks really nice. It looks like a really nice intact ship, and I don't want to tunnel into it, Cool. Okay, I think there's one in. No, there's not one in here. Oh, maybe it's down here. Could be. Yeah, there's one. Okay, hold on. Yep. What's this, a book? Unknown map? Yeah, I don't care. What do we got? We got the weird potato. Moss block. Yeah, nothing that I'm particularly interested in. Wait. I'll take the coal. I'll absolutely take the coal. That I will take. So when I had that realization, it was startling to me, legitimately startling. And I just immediately understood. We'll put this back because I'm not gonna use them. I don't want to be a jerk. Yeah, let's sleep play the ship tonight. Why not? Why the heck not? You only live once. What's you gonna do? Actually, like unless you're Buddhist. That's my typical line. Where's my thing? There it is. Okay, here we go. So, okay, so here we go. This bed. Shears go up there. This goes here. Oh, well, that's all that moved around, but that's fine. Okay. Take the bed. Go to sleep. Okay, so when I had that, it was quite indeed an epiphany for me because instantly I became a significantly better cook. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just that I became oh, hold on. Stop, hold on, wait, stop, hold on, wait. Okay. Where are you? There you are. Hello. You're welcome. Did I get it? Yes. Okay. Are there any other ones around? Oh, there's one. There's one. I thought there was another one. I thought so. Look at that sassy little stomping you're doing. So anyway, I almost instantly, not instantly, but almost instantly, so cute, just became a better cook and much significantly better at a lot of my artistic pursuits. And that applies to things like designing and developing games. Because I immediately understood on a very intimate level when things get overcomplicated and ouch, and when they don't, and there's very specific things that happen when things are complicated and they're not. And you can tell when you look at something that's really complicated, right? You can tell if you get enough experience, you can tell the person who created it, if they understand the complexity of it, right? And Minecraft is one of those games. This game, Minecraft, is like that. You can tell that Mojang understood the complexities of their application. And it comes across as there's so many people I know that refer to Minecraft as a child's game. And it's just because they don't understand it. They don't understand how complex it really is. It comes across as a very simple game. But it's shockingly complicated. But it doesn't seem that way. It can, if you get into it. Look at Redstone. That's a good example. But just the overall world, right? It's phenomenally complex. And yet so incredibly simple to perceive. It's really delightful. And so when I made that realization, I became a better cook. It's one of the things that made me very quickly in less than a year become a really proficient developer. And there's something about music that's a very common thing. The formally trained musicians can actually make very good developers. I don't know what it is, but for me, when I started development, I instantly understood it. I understood what was going on from a logic standpoint. I understand how it was structured. I also understood that I just needed to learn the syntax. And I have a very unconventional approach to doing some development. I don't like using libraries and things like that. I typically make an exception with Python. I think that you can use, there's a lot of great libraries in Python, but in general, I just coded everything from absolute scratch every single time. And it didn't take me particularly longer. Nonetheless. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So having that epiphany was a huge thing in my life, and it continues to be to this day. And I don't develop games anymore, but I do work in a creative profession. I mentioned what it was before. You'll have to go back and listen to the video and see. Not specifically, but generally. Anyway, so an executive was shown this one internal application at my work, and she was like, "This is garbage. This is so confusing. I don't know what to do." And this executive, this executive has a tendency of being extremely detail oriented, which is interesting because most executives I've run across are not as detail oriented as this executive is. I mean, on a level that she can get lost in the weeds, but she understands. She understands it. She understands when things are overly complex. She understands when things are confusing. She understands, and she cares about about the employees that are going to be using this internal application, you know? She genuinely does. Which I love. I think that's a really commendable trait, not just for an executive, but just for a person to actually care, you know? Same thing with like the videos. You know, I have a vision for what I want this channel to be, but I genuinely care that my community, small as it is, my tiny little community, I care that they enjoy it and they like it and they know, you know, not everybody's going to enjoy everything I do, of course, because I have a fairly diverse in its own way channel. You know, I play a lot of different types of games. I don't like some variety gamer because I don't quite think that fits what I'm doing, but anyway. So this executive, so she went to my boss and she asked my boss, let's I won't use my boss's real name, but let's say Guppy. Let's say Guppy's my boss. So she went to Guppy and she said, Guppy, what is going on here? This is really complicated. And she got really deep into the weeds about, you know, like this menu is confusing and you can't see what you're doing and blah, 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 blah. The heck is that? Oh, that's just underwater stuff. Okay, how do I get over there? I think it's over here. And Guppy's like, you're absolutely right. Let's look into it. Now, this is something I've been saying about this particular internal application for a long time. Not to executives, because I don't have that access in general, you know. But I've been saying it to anybody who listens, because I'm that kind of guy. It's also important, right? It's you have to, whether you're a developer or a designer or a product person or business strategist, it's so crucial that you care about what the user's doing and thinking and use how now they're using your thing, you know? It's so important that not only are you useful, but even but you need to be more than useful, right? People should be delighted to use your application. And so Guppy went to me and said, I want you to take a look at this. I want you to see what you think, because this is kind of a hot mess. And I said, okay, yeah, happy to do it. Happy to do it. So we arranged a time to what the heck? What is this doing here? That's so weird. You know, it's, again, if we were in a multiplex, like an SMP, I would say, oh, someone just cut that down, but we're not. It's so weird. That's so funny when that happens. Anyway, so I went and I looked at this particular, this slice of this larger process that was happening, and it really was a hot mess. It was so confusing, so convoluted, and you couldn't really tell what to do when you open it up, and they had these really confusing, poorly written instructions everywhere. Every single place they had these instructions. And not helpful either. Like there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, here's the best way to use our app. No, these were things like the most basic things you should just be able to look at and know, you know, how to do. And so it was interesting to me because I looked at it and I was like, oh, I this has all the hallmarks of a designer, like a UX designer and a developer and a technical architect, you know, who were in way over their heads. They got in way too deep before they realized they were in over their heads, and they just had to throw something together. And, you know, I get it sometimes. That can happen, right? It's not scoped properly, whatever, but instead of throwing it together with whatever you hope works, and sometimes you got to pull the emergency stop, right? And it's hard to do because it costs money and people don't like it. And you have to justify it, and it's, you know, it's a scary thing to do, but sometimes you have to do it because it's the right thing to do. And that did not happen with this. And this, let me tell you, this program, this system, this internal system, I'm sure it took a long time to develop, years. And I'm sure that it cost a non-insignificant amount of money. Like for the company I work for, I'm positive it did. I know for a fact it did. And it's just a mess. Not just my opinion, just objectively, it's just a mess, and nobody says anything because everybody's, well, this is a system. And, I mean, a lot of users are just like, well, this is what it is, right? Because, I mean, a lot of times users are they're really good at what they do, but what they do is not necessarily technology, right? Maybe they're account people, or maybe they're people or whatever, right? It's, maybe they're number crunchers or whatever, but they so they're not necessarily, they don't have the background to be able to say, oh man, that could have ended terribly. They sort of don't have the background and the understanding to say, oh yeah, this is a hot mess. Like, this is garbage. This is terrible. Some do, certainly. Some certainly do. And I always feel like to a degree that kind of takes guts, because so many businesses, so many people too, have the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where like you've invested all this time and money in this thing, and now somebody's saying this is unusable. And the problem with the sunk cost fallacy is they're like, well, we can't not use it because we spent all this money on it. But if you look at it and you think about it, the inefficiencies that using a system that's so bad, right? The amount of inefficiencies that you lose, the money you lose on inefficiencies and people wasting their time and it taking too long is huge. It's massive. And a lot of people don't realize how huge it is, right? And so the sunk cost fallacy is, we spent X number of dollars on this. We can't not use it. We can't fix it, right? We can try to fix it, but we have to keep building on this fundamentally flawed foundation. And so, like I said, when I looked at this, I don't want to go down there because that's a death hole. Yep. And so when I looked at the system, I made some notes and I put together a little presentation, and talked to my boss about it. And I was telling him this has all the hallmarks of this team that got in way over their heads. And now we're really not. We're paying the price, and we need to. I think it's going to be a difficult sell to say this needs to be just soup to nuts, completely redone, right? That's going to be a difficult sell. Now, granted, if ouch, okay, should be try this. Now, granted, if this executive, because this is the executive that wanted to get this done, they're extremely high powered. And if they wanted to spend the money on this, they could get it done, right? They have the political muscle internally to get it done. And so when there's some life lessons here too, by the way, sunk cost fallacy. And so I was like, well, okay, so I talked to my boss and Guppy, and we agreed that what we need are there's some immediate quick fixes, and it's not gonna really fix anything, but it's gonna make it less painful. It's still gonna be painful for the users, and not insignificantly painful, right? It's gonna be extremely painful for the users, but we can make it a little bit better, right? We can make it a little bit less painful for the users. Just making sure that things that develop consistently and they're designed consistently and the business flows make sense and that everything's logical and works together. And so, there's it got me thinking. I was thinking about this, and so we're in the process of doing this, kind of presenting this, and it made me think, that there's a lot of time in life that people do the same thing. And it's not necessarily malicious. I mean, I think a lot of things in life are done because you've invested so much time into it, Like I put so much time into this, and at some point I just become in denial about how bad this is for me personally. Maybe I don't want to. I'm trying to. The only thing I think of are like sort of vices, and I don't want it to be that. I want it to be something else. But I mean, maybe just your approach to maybe let's say a house, right? Let's say that you buy a fixer-upper, and you don't have a lot of experience with it, And you're like, I got the time. I don't mind living in this ramshackle thing, right? I can do it. I got it. I can do it. Like, I can do it. You know, I got the wherewithal. I don't mind doing it, right? But at some point, you might have to admit to yourself, after spending years working on it, and who knows how much money, you're never going to get it back. It's never going to be what you thought it was. The amount of money that you're going to spend on it to get it to where you want it to be could far, and the amount of effort you're going to put, not to mention the effort you're going to put into it, right? The amount of effort you put into it, it's going to far exceed what it's ever going to be worth. And I don't just mean value-wise. I also mean emotionally to you, right? Because it's not just all about monetary value. And that's I think that's the part of the sunk cost fallacy, especially personally, that really is difficult, right? Because you've invested so much emotion into this thing, right? Emotionally, you've invested a lot into it emotionally. And you realize at some point that the ROI isn't there, right? And I hate to talk about emotions in terms of return on investment, but it's true, right? Huh, 2 polar bears. Or is that one big polar bear? One big polar bear. That is an absolute unit of a polar bear. But that's the thing that's interesting to me about the sunk cost fallacy, is that it's such an easy trap to get into, you know? And that's the thing I was like, so I used to have a cat. This is the kitty before my current kitty. And he was amazing at that. He would go and give it his all for something. Look at that. That is so cool. Like, he would 100%, if he thought for a second that he could manipulate me into giving him more food or something, right? Something that was deeply personal to him. Like, he would 100% give it his all. Right up to the point that it became clear to him that it wasn't going to happen. And then he would just drop it with no regrets whatsoever. Just drop it. Is that that's got to be a village, right? And I was always impressed with that. And I think a lot of cats are that way. Not all, but a lot. Those look like buildings. I don't think they are, but they look like it, don't they? That's really interesting. That's really interesting. They totally do look like buildings. Whereas I think these actually are buildings. Anyway, there's a lot to be said for that, right? To not over-investing in things that just because you were, you know, I when the lockdown happened, I had a lot of epiphanies, you know? I remember one of the big ones was I have been, you know, I have my bestie. I've talked about my bestie several times before, and I met her, we'll take this one up. I met her maybe 10 years ago, maybe. And maybe not quite, anyway. And she's just the most wonderful person in the world, and I just love her dearly. And we're so close on so many like really important levels, you know. Wait, I'm going to take this. Thank you. What are you looking at? Hey, don't judge me. How dare you? All right, I accept your apology. Where's the front door to this place? Excuse me, coming in. Nope. Okay, well, bye. Oh my gosh, how do I get down there? How do I get down there without killing myself? Over here now? Yes. Wow, this village is so spread out. So cool. Wait, I don't hold it. I got an idea. I do like what all the cool Minecrafters do. Not really a boat clutch, but But I was so I think sunk cost fallacy. I realized that I just connect with my bestie on such a it's an intimate level, and it made me realize that there are people that I was friends with. Notice the past tense. The only reason I was friends with them at all was because momentum. Just because I've known them for a long time. I went to high school with them. Maybe an earlier, right? And that's the only reason I was friends with them. If I met them as adults, I don't think I'd want to be their friends because I don't think that they don't enrich my life like my bestie does, right? And when that happened, I realized, I can't be friends with them anymore. And I just stopped contacting them and stopped being friends. Like I don't want to flame out. I don't want to talk to them about it because that's not nice. And it's going to, I don't want to have that conversation. We're saying you're not giving me anything in my life. And like that's just not nice, right? I want to be that guy. And I don't like drama. I don't like anything. I just stopped being friends with them. And I'm sure they wonder what happened, but whatever. I don't care. I don't care because the sunk cost fallacy was making me be friends with them, right? Like, I'm gonna have to swim, all right? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. That's the only reason why I was friends with them was because I'd already invested a number of years, but it wasn't giving me anything back positive, and I think that's an important life lesson, that really think about, and not just with anything you do, with friends, with even with family, honestly. If you have some family, maybe not direct family, maybe indirect family members, but they're not very nice, and maybe you just stay with them and around with them and are polite to them and whatever because they've been there, Maybe that's not right to, and sometimes, of course, you're going to have to sometimes be around these people, of course, and sometimes interact with them naturally. But you don't have to be friends with them. Be somebody who used to be your friend. And you might even look back and think, after a while, because it's hard, it's emotionally difficult to make that decision, right? And it is. It was very difficult for me to make that decision because these are people that I considered close friends until I realized that I was deluding myself. That's what the sunk cost fallacy is. Like I 100% realized I was completely deluding myself. And that's difficult. It's difficult to admit to yourself. It's difficult to say, well, I have to get out. I can't do this anymore. I'm lying to myself, which is not great, and like I said, I think that can be very difficult. It can be tricky and difficult. But what are you doing? Okay. But I'm impressed with people who can do that. And I was pretty proud of myself for doing that, And it wasn't like I cut off a ton of my friends, but there were I can think of 3 specific friends that I know that I've been really good friends with, and in some thought that we were pretty close until I realized that it just wasn't true. I was deluding myself into thinking we were closer than we were because so much time had passed. I don't want your wool. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Yeah, because oh my gosh. There, take it back. Take it back. I love that concept. Oh, thank you. Here, let me just put it back on here. But I just think it's an interesting thing to do that. And like I said, it's very difficult to do. And acknowledging that something's difficult, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to hurt. And I suddenly don't have 3 friends that I've talked to quite a bit. And realizing that, okay, this is enriching my life now. Not being friends with them is enriching my life. But still, you have habits, and you talk to them at a certain cadence and do things and whatever, and you just stop doing it. So you're not doing as much. It's okay. You'll get new friends. You get new friends. But it's so important to realize what is your emotional and personal return on investment, right? Like that's super important. And people talk about return on investment. It's always think of it financially, but I would argue that emotional return on investment is significantly more important than financial return on investment. And so looking at people and saying, and sometimes, there's other times when I, one of these friends, there were things that he did that I didn't like. And I realized I didn't like them because I thought they were not respectful. And I brought it up to him and I told him, and he was like, oh, I never thought of it that way, whatever. But then behavior didn't change, And somebody talks to you about this and says, we can talk about this, and I hope we can work this out because, it's important, right? It's important to me. And then nothing changes. Like the lip service and nothing changes. Which is profoundly disappointing. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if I'm disappointed. Right? Because it's not them, it's me. And I don't mean in the cliche standpoint. Just seriously, it's not them, it's me. It's something changed to me, and I realized that I used to be friends with you, and now I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And there's no hard feelings, People are who they are, and when people grow, they typically grow in a direction. And sometimes that direction with friends is in the same direction, right? Sometimes everybody goes in the same direction. Other times, it's not in the same direction. It's in a completely different direction. And at some point, paths diverge so much that maybe you can't be friends anymore. I should craft an axe. Come here. Okay. Let's do that now because this is ridiculous. Yeah, we'll do this. Don't I have? Wait, get out of here. We need. There. That's good. Okay, we can put this back. Axe. Thank you. That back there. Those there. Good. And sometimes there might be people that you weren't friends with when you were younger, and you meet them later, and like, wow, we can be really good friends now. And I always think it's important. I always like to be friends with a variety of ages, because I think there's really cool, interesting people at a lot of different ages. When I was a musician, there was this guy, and he was like the age of my grandpa, right? And he had been a career military person. Well, oh man, wow. That was legit scary. Holy crap. I wasn't paying attention. Can we? We got this. Oh, easy. Let's go. And he played saxophone, and he was one of the few amateurs I met that he would go to gigs. So I guess he was technically a professional, but he didn't pick it up till he was long retired from the military, and he actually was quite good. And he spent a lot of money. He spent a lot of time learning to be a really good saxophone player. And he was good. And he used to, whenever he'd do a gig, he would never accept payment, and he would always insist that his share was split amongst the other musicians, because as he said, he had a really good retirement, and he didn't need the money, and he didn't want the money. And I was so impressed by that, and he was such a cool guy. He's passed away, but not long, but he's passed away, and I always just remember that, because he was so thoughtful about that, and he knew that he knew that when you're a musician, you know, you're not making a lot of money. And a lot of times you can struggle financially, you know, and having an extra $75 or $50 can be the difference between eating that week or not, right? I mean, it can make a huge difference. So cool. I'm always impressed with people like that. Or you know, someone like that's funny. I'm not gonna say that, but I find it interesting that there's so many different people that do so many interesting different things. Hey, another town. Village, I should say, not a town. I've always really liked to be friends with people of just a variety of different ages, because it's just so interesting. You can learn so much from cool people. Granted, you know, there are people who are not helpful and are jerks, or just maybe not jerks, maybe just not compatible with you, like of all ages, you know. But there can also be people that you can learn a lot from, and I really like that idea of just being open to that, you know. People can enrich your lives in so many interesting different ways. It's when you realize how that can happen, right? I always find that it's a little overwhelming. There. Man, this place is like Potato Central. Is this Ireland? I always find it interesting. I just find that interesting. Excuse me. Nope. Like I said, I've always had friends. Hey, what are you trying to do? I've always had a variety of friends of just a myriad of different ages and cultures. It's one of the things that I was talking earlier about learning how to cook. The first thing I learned how to cook was Chinese food, because a friend of mine that I went to college with was a very good Chinese cook. And he taught me how to cook. He taught me how to cook sort of traditional Chinese food. It's the first thing I learned how to cook. And that has served me well, because after I learned Chinese food, I said, I would like to learn more traditional stuff, because I feel like I'm super comfortable and I'm a good Chinese cook now. And so I picked up Julia Child's French Kitchen, and I just went through the entire book and cooked every single thing. And I didn't even think about it. I just thought, I don't know else how to do it, you know? And that's a thing. Like for people who are into cooking, that is 100% a thing. They just like, well, this is considered an icon. It's a classic icon. Yes, some of it's dated, certainly, but it's accessible. I know it's right. People talk about it being right. And I feel like if I could do this, then I would be in good shape. And so I did. I did that. And again, that's another thing where not sunk cost fallacy, but I spent an enormous amount of time just learning technique, whether it was Chinese or French. They're a little more, you know, French is a little more picky. But even just, I remember I really wanted to learn how to become proficient at breaking down a chicken, you know, into all the different parts of it. And so I would wait until, what is this, Village Central? Jeez. I would wait until, like, there was a really good sale on chicken at the grocery store. Like sometimes they'd have a sale on chickens, and it'd be like a bucket chicken, a whole chicken, you know. And so I'd pick up like a dozen of them and just practice breaking them down, you know. And then I'd invite all my friends over, and I'd just make a giant stew, and we'd have a party. We just hang out and eat stew, and, you know, and then I could freeze some of the stew, and what is that? Oh, cartography table, huh? Okay. Interesting. And I do the same with carrots, right? I'll need to learn how to dice and slice and all that kind of stuff. And so go pick up 3 pounds of carrots and practice mincing and julienning and cutting them into batons. Do I have a bed? I don't. Do I keep going? I kind of want to set my bed. Let's make one. Let's go ahead and make one. Wait. Hold on. I'm screwing everything up. I'm screwing everything up. Oh, it's going horribly wrong. Let's see. Nope, that's wrong. Yeah, I'll take the spruce log. Okay. And put that back and womp. I said womp. There we go. Get the bed. Get this. Ooh, black horse. Pretty. Right by here. And sleep. So, I guess I think, maybe. Can I get down here without dying? There's things to invest in and things not to invest in your life. Things you can do that can improve your life, like me, like learning how to learn how to have knife skills and be a decent cook. And part of it is I deeply enjoy cooking, and so I'm good at it because I like doing it, and so I do it a lot. And like anything, if things that involve technique, you just have to do it. Like there's no substitute for practice. You have to do it because you have to learn how to do it from a practical standpoint, but you also have to, your muscles just have to develop your muscles and your mind, and you just have to do it over and over and over. And that's, I think that one of the things is that, like, same with music and cooking, I enjoyed the mundane parts of it. Like I always enjoyed the deeply mundane parts of it. Which sounds funny, doesn't it? Because you're not supposed to enjoy things that are mundane, I think. But I really do enjoy that in things. And when you realize that, it's like, that's what makes you really good, is because you have to practice when you're playing the piano. You have to practice your scales and your chords. You just do. That's how you have your chops, and you have to practice that. And you have to practice different exercises. And in cooking, you have to practice your knife skills. And you get to a point where you don't necessarily have to practice as hard as you did coming up, but you still need to practice, right? You have to keep your muscles up, have to keep your chops up, have to keep your skills up. With cooking and with even like breaking down a chicken, I'm not nearly as practiced as I used to be, but I can still break down a whole chicken in like 2.5 minutes without even trying that hard. And I don't even use a boning knife. I just use a chef's knife. And if I practiced, I would bet if I picked up a dozen chickens and practiced this weekend, I could get that down to 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Once you figure out how to do it, it's really fast. And that has benefited me greatly, because being able to do that means you pay less for your meat throughout your life, right? Because whole chickens are cheaper than cut up chickens. But also, you pay less for your food, because you look at something like for me, I make hand-tossed pizza every Saturday. I make a nice hand-tossed pizza every single Saturday, and everything's from scratch. And I can't imagine how much money that has saved me. Not only is it better than frozen or store-bought pizza, right? And because it is, it genuinely is. Snip. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Uh-oh, they disappeared. Oh, well. I feel terrible now. I'm sorry. I hope your friend's okay. I didn't mean to beat them with the shears. I feel bad. Are they okay? Oh, they're done. They're okay. Okay. They're okay. And even just being able to, I feel like a breakfast burrito this morning, or a taco, or whatever. I can just make it, and make a really good one. Where am I going? This way? Yes, this way. Okay. And I'm sure it's saved me thousands of dollars to my life at this point, And it's fun doing it. And it's fun, have your friends over for a taco party. I have my best over for a taco party, and she does not cook at all. She hates cooking. But she likes watching me cook. She said she could watch me chop stuff all day long. So she comes over, and we just have a chat and make tacos. It's delightful. That's the best return on investment you could get. Hanging out with your friends, doing something you like, having great conversations. Kind of what it's about. Not just, and again, sometimes you got to pull the emergency brake, whether it's professionally or personally. Just deluding yourself that you spent too much time and too much effort to let this go. You are deluding yourself, because you're better than that. You deserve more. Find somebody and find something that's going to enrich your life in ways that you didn't think was possible. That's important, I think. Another town. What the heck is going on? How many towns am I running across this video? It's crazy. We'll head over there, but you seeing this? We got a town over there. Crazy, huh? Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you about on this one was sunk cost fallacy, because I had that situation at work and I came up with a solution. Who knows? I mean, who knows if they'll decide what to do or not? It doesn't really matter. But it just got me thinking about how that applies to life and people and friends and the whole 9 yards. And even, business, certainly. ROI. You have to look at your return on investment. Some people get themselves so deep into the woods deep into the weeds that they don't think they can stop, Like I said, sometimes you got to stop. You got to just pull the emergency brake. Say, I'm out. It's not going to work. Or sometimes you have to pull the emergency brake and say, can we find a solution? Can we make this work? Sometimes you can. Like when I tried to talk to my friend, tried to make that work. It didn't work, but it could have. It easily could have. Some people change. I truly believe that. People can change. They're capable of it. It's hard. Changing's hard. I understand. Wait. Come here. But people are capable of change. It's just a matter of, why is it so low? Because it's a loft. I understand. Look at those carrots. What's the door? I just walked right by it. Jeez. Oh, come here. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, we're headed this way. Headed this way. White horse. Pretty. Another one. Pretty. All right, let's go. Let's get out of here. Thank you for your wool. Whoops. Careful. Careful. What's over there? We'll figure it out sometime. Oh, another sheep. 2 more. Nice. Just stocking up on this. I'll use it. I will. I'll use it. See if we can come up here and find a waterway that goes to the right a little bit. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about your life and your friends and your emotional things and what's your return on investment emotionally? Do people help you? I hope your friends do. Mine do now. I have less now than I used to. But the other side is because I have less, I can also spend more time with the people that do enrich my life, and I hope that I enrich theirs, You can't get away from me. Get back here. What are you doing? You too, come here. Yeah, we'll have to go this way. We'll have to go up. Which is fine. We'll head up here. We'll head up here. Head up. We'll head up. Up and up and up and up. And up and up and up. I read this really interesting thing that was talking about how how amplified Minecraft. I have my new base is amplified. And I love the amplified world so much. It makes everything so much more difficult. I love it. Nope. Go back around this way. Sure. Is it raining? It is. Huh. I guess we could go down here. Why not? Probably sit our bed and sleep at some point. Come on up. Nope, nope. Come, get out of here. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Man. Nice looking game. It's a nice looking game. Yeah, I just wanted to have a little chat about that today because I think that stuff's important. I think a lot of times people don't talk enough about that. Everything you do is an investment. Your emotions, your time. And we have a limited we don't have a limited time here. Right? No matter how old you are, your time is limited, so getting the most for yourself is important. But it's a new day. I think with that, that's a pretty good place to end this video. Thank you so much for watching this playthrough of exploring Minecraft. I go in Minecraft and just talk about things. Sometimes I talk about Minecraft, sometimes I talk about life, philosophy, creativeness. I hope you're enjoying it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for more exploring Minecraft. See you in the next video.